The Arctic, one of our planet's last great wildernesses. A beautiful and unforgiving environment. Home to some of the most extraordinary wildlife on Earth.
I'm going on an epic adventure across this incredible landscape. We are having to wind our way carefully through massive icebergs.
I'm Liz Bonnen, a wildlife biologist. I've devoted my life to studying the natural world.
Honestly, the more you learn about any one species, the more humbling it is.
Now, I want to understand how Arctic wildlife is faring in the face of climate change, and how scientists are working to save it.
Climate change here has already been having really profound impacts for a couple of decades.
I've been given a rare chance to join the teams pulling out all the stops to protect the wildlife here by studying it from above.
Stunning, stunning sight.
Using helicopters to track elusive animals.
Sorry, this is way too exciting for my heart.
Deploying drones to make new discoveries.
So you can actually calculate how much fat reserves the animal is carrying.
And state-of-the-art satellites to understand behaviors never observed before. Coming up.
Oh, wow, I see them, I see them.
I'll join a team in a race to capture one of the Arctic's fastest animals.
How do they even do that?
I'll abseil to the nest of a cliff-dwelling predator. And I'll find out why scientists are tracking seals from space.
Here in the fjords, this is a very new phenomenon.
It's the Arctic like you've never seen it before. This is Arctic from above.
The Canadian North. During the long, harsh winter, it's an endless terrain of snow and ice. A little over 100,000 people live here, in an area almost half the size of Europe. With so few humans, there's plenty of room for wildlife. One species that truly makes the most of all that space is the caribou. Or as we know them in the UK, reindeer. These magnificent beasts are made for moving. They can reach speeds of up to 50 miles per hour and cover thousands of miles between their summer pastures on the Arctic tundra and their winter grazing grounds to the south. It's the longest migration of any land animal. Out on the open tundra, one type of caribou finds safety in numbers from wolves, living in vast herds. But another subspecies has evolved a different strategy. They live in Canada's boreal forest. Hiding in small herds to protect themselves from predation, they are very hard to spot. It's these boreal or woodland caribou that I want to find. I've come to Canada's Northwest Territories, a province bigger than France, Spain, and the UK combined, but home to fewer than 50,000 people. In this vast landscape with underdeveloped infrastructure, there are very few roads. But with winter temperatures below -40 degrees Celsius, there is another way to get around.
The road I'm driving on is on a huge frozen lake, something like 27,000 kilometers squared, and it would take me 7 hours to drive across it. I'm on my way to Yellowknife, on the edge of this part of the lake. It's the only city in the Northwest Territories.
I've met up with biologist Alicia Kelly, who works for the Northwest Territories Wildlife Division. One of the most effective ways to conduct crucial research in this frozen wilderness is by getting up in the air.
This place is absolutely mind-blowing.
Across Canada, boreal caribou are a threatened species. Numbers are on the decline in part because of climate change. But the population in this area is bucking the national trend, and Alicia wants to find out why. The plan is to fit collars with satellite tracking devices on some of the caribou. But first, we have to find them.
So are boreal caribou, just by their very nature, really hard to find because they're always in the trees?
They're very hard to find.
Yeah.
Boreal caribou are solitary. They live alone or in really small groups. And there's not a lot of animals, but there are animals at low densities, right?
But thanks to satellite collars that have already been fitted on some caribou, Alicia knows where to look.
All of these little black rectangles are showing us where there's a collared animal on the ground. That will help us to find caribou to get another collar out on an animal in this area.
So how much more difficult would it be to find a boreal caribou if you didn't have some that were collared to indicate where some of the herds are?
Immensely difficult because they're so hard to see. And there's really not very many of them.
So we're heading where these collars are.
We're flying with another helicopter, carrying a highly trained team whose job it is to capture the caribou.
See that large kind of lake there? He's just going to come out onto it. The caribou are actually on the lake running. And Ian is hanging out the side of the machine.
Catching one of the fastest animals in the Arctic in the depths of winter can only be done by helicopter. And to do it without harming the animal requires a net gun and a marksman with phenomenal skill.
Can you see the caribou running on the lake?
Oh, wow, I see them. How do they even do that? That's extraordinary.
I'm in Canada's Northwest Territories to find out why boreal caribou here are doing better than other populations in the face of climate change.
They have the caribou. Oh, looks like a very calm scene.
Typically, once an animal has a blindfold on and it feels restrained, it's fairly calm. It reduces the fear, right? It calms the animal down.
This female caribou appears to be in good condition. The team need to take blood samples to find out if she is as healthy as she looks.
And when I start taking blood, as soon as you make sudden movements, it's going to kick out.
They're so perfectly adapted to the cold, to the point of having fur all the way to the tips of their noses, all around the nostrils. And then inside that nose is this incredible network of flesh and cartilage and chambers that basically act as a heat exchange system. So when -40°C air comes in, all of those folds of flesh warm up the air to 35°C before the air gets to the lungs. And on the way out, the air is held in a chamber so that all the humidity is kept, so it gets as much of the water out of the air before it exhales. It's amazing. I didn't put my glove liners on, so I can't feel my fingers. So hopefully I'm not going to go over on you. She's strong. God. That was a bit scary.
Another sample to collect are scats, or droppings, that can reveal a lot of information, including what the animal has been eating.
For such a big animal, their scats are really small, tiny pellets, aren't they?
Oh yeah, this is one of the adaptations of caribou, right? They're so efficient at making it through the winter that they recycle a lot of the protein and the nitrogen within their body instead of pooping it out or peeing it out.
So they're really letting rid of the bare minimum, getting everything out of the vegetation that they possibly can.
With all the samples taken and a tracking collar fitted, the team's fieldwork is done.
There is nothing more thrilling than being so close to a purely wild animal for a brief moment in time. She looked in really good condition, so it's really nice to just play a tiny, tiny part in helping to protect them out here when, you know, their numbers are declining everywhere else. So to try and figure out why they're doing relatively well here has never been more important.
Over the past few years, Alicia has tracked dozens of caribou. She's processed the data to create a remarkable satellite map revealing how they make use of this vast terrain.
So all of these green lines basically show, for the collars that we've had out previously, we've taken all of the points that they've transmitted to the satellite and basically connected them, right, with walk lines.
I don't know why that's really...
are more likely to be.
Why am I so thrilled by a bunch of really, like, squiggly green lines?
It's really exciting.
It just brings the whole caribou to life, even without being on the ground. This is how they use the habitat. They like this area.
Alicia's tracking data has revealed that the caribou here have been spending time in recently burned forest. In the middle of winter, it can be hard to imagine, but in summer, temperatures here reach 30 degrees Celsius. And under certain conditions, the boreal forest can go up like a tinderbox. Up to 20 million hectares burn every year, almost the size of the UK. These fires are a natural part of the ecosystem, but climate change is leading to more frequent and intense fires.
Look at that. It's really harrowing, isn't it? It just looks like a disaster zone compared to these beautiful, lush boreal forests. This is just carnage. It's just sort of like tiny, naked sticks of trees left and loads of fallen trees all over the place here. I mean, that looks pretty serious. Look at that. Wow.
And it ends up making quite a mess because as the trees fall over, they get hung up on each other. And it's like, you know, the kids' game of pickup sticks. And you really can't navigate through it at all.
Boreal caribou are known to seek out healthy forests with good cover to hide from wolves. But Alicia's data shows that in summer, they choose to spend time in this burnt forest.
Yeah. Look at that. Charcoal.
I mean, every single stick is charred. Look at that one, nothing left on it. I mean, it looks like a pretty grim scene, doesn't it? But it's natural too.
Yeah, it looks really destructive, but fire is part of the boreal forest. It burns and it regrows.
Honestly, at first glance, you just wouldn't think that this is a great spot, because you just think, everything's burnt, it's rubbish. Boreal caribou are all about forests, aren't they? They need to be in it, sheltered, safe from predators, they like to hide, feel safe. This is not boreal habitat anymore. It's completely exposed, so why would they come here?
Generally speaking, when a fire goes through, it burns up all the woody debris and all the clutter on the forest floor that caribou really have to work around when they're trying to eat in an older forest. They're actually pretty picky eaters. So then in an area like this, lots of new plants and shrubs and grasses and things, they're growing back really fresh. There's a lot of new growth each year compared to an older forest where everything is just growing a little bit each summer. And caribou can come along and get these big, you know, juicy bites of a lot of new growth and a lot of nutrition sort of in one bite.
So the power-packed shrubs after a burn are better than the shrubs that are growing in the forests in the summer, so they might choose to come here to get more energy.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
When spring arrives and the snow melts, this winter landscape turns a lush green. And some of the most nutritious new food for caribou will be in the forests that have recently burned.
But here's my next question, because there's more of this like proper new growth shrubs out here, but there's no cover. Am I going to take the risk to come and get this good stuff, or am I going to play it safe, get the slightly less nutritious, slightly more difficult to find shrubs, and make sure that, you know, predators don't get me?
That's always the choice, right? But the openness is not necessarily a bad thing for a caribou because they can see farther to see if there's wolves around.
How intense was this fire? And does that play a part in this too?
Yeah, the intensity of the fire really matters in terms of what grows back, right? This would have been a low intensity fire. There's still standing dead trees. We can see even some of these shrubs that grew back. Across North America, fires are increasing in severity. We haven't seen that as much within the Northwest Territories yet.
This is fascinating stuff. As we walked in here for the first time, I never imagined you would say, yeah, this is a great spot for caribou, because at first glance, it just doesn't look like it.
That's right. We've been studying caribou within this burn for several years now, and they consistently come in and use these burned areas during the summer. They choose to be there, and we think that the population has been increasing for the last 8 years that we've been studying them here.
That is such good news, and who would have thunk it? A place like this contributes to their recovery.
Yeah.
In many parts of the country, forest fires can be so intense that it takes years for any vegetation to grow back and for the wildlife to recover. But here, the fires haven't been so destructive. The vegetation is able to return sooner, helping the caribou here to thrive. The Arctic is a region of contrasts. During the harsh, frozen winter, the sun stays below the horizon for months. But with summer comes flourishing new life and 24 hours of daylight. Amongst the animals who have evolved to survive in this extraordinary ecosystem is a supremely adapted aerial predator. Gyrfalcons are the largest of all falcon species, with a wingspan that can reach up to 1.5 meters. One of the fastest birds on the planet, they can reach speeds of up to 130 miles per hour. In winter, when temperatures reach minus 40 degrees Celsius or below, most Arctic birds migrate south, but the gyrfalcons stay. Their lives are intimately tied to the Arctic, so much so that they can only be found here. But climate change is warming the Arctic, 4 times faster than the global average. So what does this mean for the gyrfalcons who depend on it? I'm in Alaska, searching for the gyrfalcon, one of the Arctic's most elusive predators.
Gold buyers of Alaska. Ooh, Nugget Inn. Gold stuff everywhere in this town.
I'm in a small town called Nome, just across the Bering Strait from Russia.
Nome is Alaska's most famous gold rush town, and back in the 1900s, people arrived here from all over the world in their droves in the hope of making their fortunes. But today, they come here for remote, off-the-beaten-track adventure and also for the wildlife. Travis, hi.
Hey!
How are you?
Well, how are you doing?
It's really good to see you. I'm very well, thank you. Can I help you with some gear?
That would be great.
Yeah.
Travis Booms works for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. He's been studying gyrfalcons for more than 25 years.
What fascinates you about these birds?
Honestly, they are kind of this quintessential supreme Arctic predator. They are, to the bird world, what a polar bear is to the mammal world. They're extremely hardy. Although we have a beautiful day here today, thankfully.
We do.
If you can envision this place in December in the cold darkness of winter, it's really quite an impressive species to be able to survive and thrive in an environment like this.
I'm here just as the Arctic summer is beginning.
Oh my gosh! Over there, look! Three of them!
Oh wow, look at that! Sweet!
A mother and two cubs, right?
Yep, exactly. Those are yearling cubs.
Oh my good lord.
Look at her run. You never know what you're going to see on the aerial surveys.
Every year, Travis flies across the tundra surrounding Nome, searching for gyrfalcon nests.
So tell me a little bit about the surveying that you're doing.
We'll be flying by all these cliffs, trying to identify the species that are occupying them, and then if they have young, count the young, and you can do that year in and year out, and then you can get a trend and understand how this population, is it increasing, decreasing, stable?
Gyrfalcons are extremely rare. Alaska is home to just 500 breeding pairs. But they're not the only birds of prey that use cliff nests to raise their chicks.
So you don't know whether this is a gyrfalcon nest yet?
You never know. It could have nothing on it, or it could have other species on it.
Travis will record whatever species he finds.
They're coming up on Hotel 013. If we drop down, we see lots of orange. You're starting to see stick nests come up into view. There's a golden eagle flying down below us, bringing food up to the nest right now.
Oh my God.
There's the young just brought in. Prey delivery. This is unbelievable.
Prey delivery.
So adult golden eagle. And we have two nestlings. Probably about 6 weeks of age, 5 or 6, 6 weeks of age.
Oh my God,
That is a
Travis.
spectacular sight.
A golden eagle and two chicks on their nest with prey being delivered to them.
Yeah. Yeah,
This place is insane.
That was very rare. I don't think I've ever seen that before, with an adult actually bringing food to the nest as we're surveying them. That was unbelievable. Turn to your left. To your 9 o'clock now.
Whoa! Wow, that's hard banking there. Woo.
Yeah, this is standard raptor survey. The faster the turns we make, the better, because it gives us more time to be looking at the birds. So it's very aggressive flying.
Yeah, it feels like it.
So go up this little valley and then drop over on the back side of this hill, and then we'll be lined up for Hotel 040. And now, now you're just able to see one chick. So
there's a chick.
That appears, that's a gyrfalcon chick, and there's another one on the back right. So
yes.
2 for sure. They just saw a shadow. And that's another thing that you're looking for when you're doing these surveys. So you can't necessarily see above you. You're watching for shadows of birds that are either chasing you or coming down on you. And there's a female or adult stooping us from behind, so we should get out of here.
Okay. They're fiercely protective of their young, clearly.
Yeah, but you have to remember that we are invading their territory. They are a territorial species that defends their area against other birds, and their nestlings are in the nest. So they, on occasion, will come out and try to scare the helicopter away from the nest. When that happens, we of course want to minimize any serious effects to the birds, but that is also a potential threat to us as a helicopter if we had a strike. So we always bail off, and the bird always wins.
Gyrfalcon populations across the Arctic are relatively stable, but there are signs that numbers here may be falling. Travis wants to find out why, and that means getting closer to a nest. We've landed near one that's home to an extremely rare white gyrfalcon.
This is a real treat. Most of the gyrs out here are gray. Yeah, white birds they're quite rare.
So she's a real rarity, is she?
So they're just crazed.
It takes over your body when you see two gyrfalcons swooping in front of you like that.
It's
unbelievable. Look at her, she's so beautiful.
With the parents circling above, keeping a close eye on us, Travis has to abseil to the nest.
Oh, God. The things we do.
And I'm joining him.
I've never been very good with heights. But hey-ho, all in the name of science. Flipping heck. It's quite a sheer, vertical old drop there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what a cliff is. Sheer vertical, maybe even a little overhung. This one's overhung, so it's even more than sheer.
I should probably look. Okay.
The kids are right below that ledge.
Okay.
You gotta go up and over it.
Okay.
So, and you can lean back a little bit and see there's some steps. Kind of. Put one knee over and one knee on the other side. There's a ledge right there. There you go, you got it.
Okay, my feet are just free.
Yep, and just scooch down, you're fine. You're good. The rope's got you.
This is such fun.
There, you're over the lip. Yeah, good, you're doing great. Knocking rock down on the kids.
Oh, I've just seen them. Oh my gosh. Oh my God, look at them. Oh, Travis, I can't believe what I'm looking at. Oh my
So we got 3 kids. They're actually older than I thought. They're approaching 4 weeks, actually.
I'm in love. How many chicks do they tend to rear? How many tend to survive?
Gyrfalcon survival in their first year is quite low because they have to learn how to catch prey, every couple days at least. So juvenile survival is about 40% in their first year. So most of them don't make it. Once they make it through their first year of life, then survival is about 80%.
That's nature for you. This one's feisty as all heck. If anyone's going to survive, it's the one in the middle. She's protecting her siblings, isn't she?
Yep.
To find out why the population here may be declining, Travis is fixing a camera to the rock.
It takes a time-lapse photo every 30 minutes, and then it's triggered by any kind of movement. So we'll get lots of photos as these kids are being fed and walk around.
He also needs to take samples from the chicks, and that means removing them from the nest for a short time so he has more space to work. It's a temporary disturbance and a crucial one if he's to better understand the threats gyrfalcons are facing.
You're okay. You're going for a little ride. Okay, I'm going to lower the chick.
Gosh, we're lowering gyrfalcon chicks to the ground so we can do a health check on them.
Chick is coming down.
Oh my God. There are moments in life where it takes a while for something so incredibly special to sink in. And right now my whole body is buzzing with adrenaline and just the thrill of setting eyes on those incredible chicks. Okay.
Now we're going to draw some blood.
What is that sample going to tell you?
One of the diseases that we are looking for is avian malaria. And other researchers have found that avian malaria is now being transmitted from bird to bird in Alaska. Previously, it was always something that migrants would bring up with them, but they wouldn't transmit between birds. But now that it's warm enough and the summer's long enough, malaria can go through its life cycle and actually move from bird to bird here. So that's
via mosquitoes.
Exactly.
So the reality is that these Arctic regions are getting warm enough for these temperate and tropical diseases to start establishing themselves as far north as here.
Yes, exactly. And gyrfalcons are one of the species that we want to really monitor that in, because they stay in the Arctic all year long. Therefore, historically, they're not exposed to these diseases and they haven't built up a resistance.
Okay. If avian malaria establishes itself here, it could have a huge impact on gyrfalcons. But Travis is even more concerned about another problem that climate change is causing. I'm in Alaska studying gyrfalcons. Of all the bird species here, they're one of the most threatened by climate change. Travis Booms has gathered camera trap images that reveal a grave problem.
So what are we looking at here then?
So one of the things that we're looking at in these cameras is how extreme weather events affects nest success. So today we've had a spectacular day. It's beautiful out. We're in t-shirts. It's really nice. But these nestlings came out as eggs in April, when it's still snowy, cold, snowing and raining. So gyrfalcons typically nest in sites that are overhung, so they have some protection, just like you saw.
Yeah.
Getting over that ledge.
Yes, thank you very much.
You can imagine that when it's raining or snowing out, that provides really great protection to the elements. But now we're seeing more extreme rain and precipitation events, and we're seeing that in the nest cameras. So here you can see the shot is actually obscured a bit with rain on the lens.
Oh, that's why, yeah. Oh,
but you can see
look.
two chicks, and you can see that their down is wet, so they're soaked with water.
Yeah, I mean, what's the problem here? Why can't it stay dry yet?
Right, so until they reach about 25 to 30 days of age, they don't have those contour feathers to shed the water off to protect their down to stay dry.
They have no waterproofing yet.
Exactly. The adults need to be there actually physically, we call it brooding, where they actually physically shield, and you can see that they're sopping wet. So here we know that chick perished because of the rain. And there's another 3 nestlings that have perished in the rain. And now, of course, that happens on a regular basis, regardless of extreme weather events. But if you have more extreme weather events, and they are more extreme for a longer duration, the chicks don't get just wet for an hour or two, but they may get wet for days on end.
Okay.
So we're seeing that climate change is causing those extreme weather events, and now we're seeing on the cameras the impacts of those weather events.
So heavy rains, more frequent, are certainly impacting the population because of climate change. What do you think the future of the gyrfalcon looks like?
It's questionable, to be honest. They certainly are facing an uncertain future. By us doing some of this research, we might be able to mitigate some of these threats. So, for example, we're seeing these more extreme weather events during a critical part of their life stage. One option, if we wanted to, is we could start modifying their nesting habitat. We could put up nest boxes on these cliffs before the species has declined and become threatened.
Climate change is impacting species all across the Arctic. The more we can understand exactly how, the more this data can also help to influence the bigger decisions that can be made to protect these precious, unique species and their Arctic home. The next stop on my journey across the Arctic takes me further north than I've ever been before. I'm traveling to Svalbard, a group of islands halfway between the northern tip of Europe and the North Pole. Half the size of England, it's home to just a few thousand people. So most of the archipelago is largely untouched. I've made my way to a remote research station called New Alesund. It's the northernmost year-round settlement on the entire planet, just 750 miles from the North Pole.
So I have 3 pairs of socks, 2 bottom layers, 4 top layers, a snood, 2 hats, and then there's this survival suit. And even then, I'm not sure I'm going to be warm enough.
I'm heading out on the water to find out about one of the Arctic's most captivating marine mammals. Arctic waters have traditionally been home to 6 species of seals. The spotted seal and ribbon seal, the harp seal and the hooded seal. And the 2 year-round residents of this fjord, the bearded seal and ring seal.
Stunning bearded seal on the ice. Little bit nervous of us, but what a beaut. And they're called bearded seals because of their thick white whiskers on their snouts that often go curly when they're dry. And they're the largest of the Arctic seals. They can weigh up to something like 430 kilos. The pups are able to swim and dive to depths of about 200 meters within a few hours of birth. And they like to forage on the sea floor, so they eat things like shrimp and crab and clams. But they prefer shallowish waters with loads of ice. A lot of their life is dependent on the ice. That's my first bearded seal.
But life for the seals in this bay is changing. A new arrival may be putting their future at risk.
Having to make our way through all of these big blocks of ice all the way to the shore.
I'm joining Professor Kit Kovacs, who's studying the bearded and ring seals in these waters.
Doesn't get much better than that for a laboratory, does it?
Kit and her team are capturing the seals with nets, and I've arrived just in time.
So what have you got here, Kit?
It's a harbour seal.
A harbour seal in the fjords of Svalbard. Now that I didn't expect.
And you wouldn't expect it. It isn't an Arctic species. It's a temperate species. And here in the fjords, this is a very new phenomenon.
What's happening now? What's changing?
The environment is changing. Recently, the temperature of that water has increased dramatically. And we're talking 3-4 degrees change.
A change of 3 or 4 degrees over what time period?
We're talking a couple of decades.
So harbour seals, they're moving into the fjords. They're exploiting more territory around here because they
Absolutely.
can. And is their population going up?
Yes. But their distribution has quadrupled in the last decade. And they're overlapping now in this fjord with resident ring seals and resident bearded seals.
As climate change warms these waters, harbour seals have been moving north to this fjord in just the last few years. Kit wants to find out whether these newcomers might be directly competing for food with the resident seals here. It's a rare opportunity to get up close to these beautiful creatures and learn about a highly effective tool in their hunting arsenal.
See these little pores?
Yes. Bunch of hairs coming out of each.
Yeah, well, it's just 1 or 2 in these little sensory spaces above his nose. And he's got his whiskers. And he has these little patches of eyebrows.
Yes.
And then he's got these very fine little sensory hairs just above his nose, above his nostrils.
Yeah.
And they can follow the molecular disruption in the water from a fish passing by for several minutes. So at depths below 30, they really don't have enough light to function with their eyes. But the sensory hairs just take over, and they can actually follow fish trails.
Molecular, what did you call it? The molecular signal?
It's the molecular disruption within the water column that they can follow as a trail to catch fish in complete darkness.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, they're amazingly adapted.
Honestly, the more you learn about any one species, the more humbling it is, the things they're capable of.
To find out if harbour seals might be outcompeting bearded and ringed seals for food, Kit's team are tagging all 3 species.
That's the GPS antenna that you see there on the surface, this little square. But you've got 2 little saltwater switches here, so you know when the animal is underwater versus on the surface. And you have a pressure transducer here, so you know the depth at which the animal is. There's also temperature sensor in here, so this will be recording the water temperature as well. So we get really intense fine-scale information on every single dive that these animals do.
And how long are they attached to the animal?
The animal will molt them off the following year.
Okay.
So when they lose their hair next summer, then the tag will fall off.
So it's 8-month records of their movements,
every single
their
dive.
dives, the distances, the depths.
Exactly where they are and exactly what they're doing.
This incredible technology will monitor the seal's precise locations, thanks to the GPS satellites orbiting high above the Arctic, providing Kit with all the information she needs to understand the impact that the harbour seals might be having here. But even without the potential threat from harbour seals, bearded and ringed seals are already being impacted by warming sea temperatures. 40 years ago, these waters would completely freeze over every winter. Now, instead of vast sheets of sea ice, the fjord is only littered with pieces from calving glaciers.
They're totally dependent on sea ice. They rest on the ice, they breed on the ice or under the ice, they raise their babies on the ice, they need it as a nursing platform, and sea ice is declining so fast they're not going to adjust to it. 2005, this fjord had normal ice. 2006, it had almost none, and 2007, less than that. And it's never recovered again. If you don't have sea ice, then you don't have ring seals.
Sea ice is the lifeblood of the Arctic, a crucial ecosystem that supports countless life forms, from microscopic marine plants to some of the largest animals on Earth. If we are to protect them, it's vital that we understand exactly how their home is changing. Next time, I'll discover unseen images of this region's largest land animal.
An absolute brand newborn. This is unbelievable footage.
I'll explore why an Arctic seabird is facing a new threat.
Oh!
And I find out how a new arrival is altering the tundra.
Beavers have come pouring into the Arctic tundra, and everything is just completely transformed.